in 5, 6, 7, 8. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Smart and Public podcast. This is a podcast where we talk about careers, life, business, all through the eyes of PR comms people. I'm Katie Boyson.
And I'm Katie Duffy.
And we do that sometimes, and sometimes we don't do that.
Yeah.
But it's all done through the eye contact.
You've all been here a while and you know our names, but if you're new, hi.
Well, both of our names are Katie, and you need to know which one the Australian one is and which one the American one is.
Yeah, that's about it. That's all you really need to know.
And then we start to gel together. We become one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How have you been? How's your week been?
Oh my gosh, it's been busy. It's school holidays here. So, every 10 weeks they roll around, and every 10 weeks we need to figure out how
I feel like they're every 10
days.
days.
2 weeks. But no, we're very lucky. We have a big, good village that helps us. But I took 2 days off to take Noah to Melbourne, which was lovely, just the two of us, which was really nice. But it just, when you take 2 days off, you just end up doing, 5 days of work in 3. So that's always great. But yeah, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. It's still like middle of summer here. I feel like it's that part of the summer where it's really, really hot and it's like 2:30, 3 o'clock rolls around and you're like, I just want to lay down under a fan and go to
it's Aperol time is what it is.
Oh, baby. Now you're talking.
Yeah. Whereas I'm the opposite. For those who want to tune into the video when this goes live, I am in a giant pink puffer jacket because it's freezing. And my office is pretty cold, so
I'm not mad at it. Should we dive into what we're doing today? All right. So Duffy and I have been kind of noodling on this one for a little bit, and we found that it was really interesting and just decided, you know what? We've got a gap in guests. That's another thing. We have a guest every single week and for like the next month and a half. So if you hate this episode, just hang tight because we're going to have guests.
Yeah, hang tight. They're coming. You will not have to just put up with us gas bagging for much longer.
100%. Like there's going to be some like real professionals coming on here.
Yeah. It's going to be great. But in the meantime,
let me dive in. So we've been talking about the Qantas crisis, cybersecurity breach that has happened over the last few weeks. I think it was like July 7th. When was that?
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago. Yeah. I think we're up to about 2 or 3 weeks now. Yeah.
Yep. And we've been kind of like lurking in the background, just seeing how this has transpired. And really what has happened is as we look more into it, like the deeper the wormhole gets, I feel like. I don't know if you feel this way as well.
Well, I'm also a customer, so I'm literally living this experience as we speak.
Okay. How about like maybe what we should do? So how about you tee up what has happened?
What's happened?
But I also want to walk through, like, for people that don't fly Qantas, like we should also talk about like the experience, like what happens when you do a Qantas flight and like why this matters so much to Australians and like what this looks like as well.
So I think you have to understand a little bit about the Qantas kind of history. So Qantas is our, national airline. It's kind of for a long time been sort of the pride of Australia. If, a lot of brand surveys, Qantas would always be either at the top or near the top, but usually in the top spot in terms of like most trusted brand. Most Australians, I mean, we do have a couple of other airlines. We have Virgin Australia, like there are a couple of other ones, but essentially it's kind of the airline that people really associate with travel, returning home. They've had a long history of very good advertising campaigns that really pull on this idea of Australians and returning home. They've had a long-time CEO prior to the CEO that's in place now called Alan Joyce. And, there was a period of time where Qantas was really leading from a values perspective. They were very outward and forward in terms of diversity. They've always, I think, done a really good job of incorporating Indigenous Australia into their brand and into their ethos and their values. And so that's kind of the history of like who they've been to Australians. Then they went through a very interesting brand transition through COVID. Obviously, lots of airlines struggled. Qantas was not immune from that either. And they made some decisions around that time. They let a lot of staff go. and a lot of permanent staff, and then sort of as recovery happened, they brought on sort of more casual staff around, you know, baggage handling, things like that. They also then got exposed for price gouging, and so
which was a big thing in Australia in general. I feel like
yes,
COVID
yes,
time.
and I think, you know, culturally there's a real sense of like the concept of a fair go and like not taking, you know, advantage of people. And I think people felt like Qantas was already pretty expensive, but you know, you paid for the experience and what they delivered. And I think that's probably the other piece is they have a very, very strong safety record, very good customer service up until this point. So like that was okay from a cost perspective. But then when they found out they'd been price gouging along with they'd cut all this staff, so they were making money by not having as many permanent staff and, you know, hiring all these different casuals and that sort of thing. So long story short, they've had a bit of a trust erosion from a brand perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Then, you know, Alan came under a lot of fire, the then CEO, and there was a bit of back and forth about, you know, the board continued to support him when really he didn't really have a lot of, you know, public support, and people were pretty angry about bonuses and salaries and all sorts of stuff. And so there was a long period where I think the board didn't do anything and people were mad about that. Anyway, long story short, Alan leaves. There's a new CEO. Her name's Vanessa Hudson. She was a long-term employee. I believe she was the CFO before becoming CEO. And so that's kind of been the transition. If anyone's interested, there is a journalist in Australia, Joe Aston, who used to write a column for the AFR, I believe, but he's written a whole book on this and kind of the Alan Joyce thing.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so I haven't read it. I read a few articles about it, and it's on my list in my Kindle to read. But I think, you know, it's just been a really interesting transition from a brand perspective. So that's kind of state of play.
Yeah.
So that's where we're at. There's been this brand erosion. You know, trust has gone down. There's been a few incidences. They lost their CEO left eventually after a lot of pressure, and then they've had this new CEO. And then a couple of weeks ago, they have a data breach through one of their third-party systems. So in terms of what kind of happened, the data breach happened. They obviously found out about it internally. And then their CEO, Vanessa Hudson, was on holidays. She very quickly came out of her holiday and fronted the media and, you know, said what, at a very high level, what had happened. As a customer, they sent out a mass customer comms basically saying, we've had this data breach. Some of your personal information has been released. And if you are affected or how you are affected, you will get another comms about what that looks like.
Yeah.
Then as a customer, if you were affected, which there were a ton, so
me.
You know,
I got the double email.
Me, most people I know, so I think it's pretty, you know, widespread. But you then got the email that was like, hey, you were impacted and here's all your data that was you know, made public or was part of the breach. And I think and we'll get into this now in terms of like the, you know, what they did, what they didn't do, all that sort of stuff. I think as a customer, what was interesting is like, I would say the first email was I feel like they almost downplayed what type of personal information was released or how much. And then to get the second email, there was quite a lot. I mean, it was pretty much everything other than maybe my passport number, but you know, date of birth, you know, all of that stuff, frequent flyer number, everything. So that was quite jarring to get the second email and be like, well, hang on, this is a shit ton of information about me. And in the first email, it was kind of like, yeah, it was just, you know, like, so I think as a customer, I felt like, although I felt communicated to, I felt like it was a little bit like, you know, and maybe they didn't know at the beginning how widespread and what, so they kind of had to be a little bit vague, but it just felt like a bit of a shock to the system. But I mean, that's kind of, I'll pause there, but that's where we're at in terms of what's happened.
Well, and from what I could find, obviously we don't know like the exact hour of when the breach was discovered, but what was talked about was like this 36-hour kind of turnaround for customer comms.
Yeah.
And they were praising like the Qantas playbook for like that being great. But in my head, I was like, 36 hours feels like a long time from a comms perspective. And for like PR people that have this playbook where they're like, in the first 60 minutes, here's what needs to happen.
Yeah. I think for mass customer comms, when you would have had to do some internal investigating first, because also you got to remember there's a legal element to this, right? If they put something in that email that like can come back to bite them. So I actually don't think it's that bad from a mass customer comms point of view. I think obviously they were much quicker with the CEO coming out and alerting people that, and obviously just to be clear as well, they have a duty to report a data breach as well. So they have to come out because they know they're going to have to report the data breach. So, I do want to caveat that like it would have come out anyway. So they have to come out pretty quickly because they have to report, as from a mandatory perspective, they have to report their data breach that's happened. So I think they did a good job personally of like getting ahead of it quite quickly. I think mass customer comms is tricky because you would need to have the draft, have legal sign off. Obviously they would have some sort of email engine obviously to do mass customer comms, but it's multiple teams. It's the comms team is probably one part of that, but there's a whole bunch of other teams that are part of that. But I think you're right. Like maybe it's a hard one. I think it's not too bad. I think the challenge is what do you put in that first email, right? And whether they got that right. And I'm not sure that they did.
You know what? Yeah. And you know what? It just gives me, my trauma from being laid off. It's like, we're going to lay off these many people in the company. You'll find out in 10 minutes if you're affected. You'll get another email.
Yeah.
And so everyone's just sitting there like clenching their butt cheeks, waiting to see if like they've been impacted or not. But I also think like when you have the vague first response and then the follow up with here's what actually has been impacted in your account, you're either setting yourself up for, based on God knows what expectations are of that customer, for, oh, why are you making a big deal out of this? To, oh my God, like, I can't believe they have all this information. Like, you're almost setting them up to have a knee-jerk reaction either way.
Either way. Yeah. It's an interesting one because it's like, we're often in comms taught in a crisis to somewhat over communicate, right? Like make sure you're out front of that, you're talking to people, you're getting, and so I think that's what they were trying to do is say like, we don't really know all the information, but this has happened and we want you to know as a customer that this has happened.
Yeah.
Which I think in like, and this all comes back to like this kind of, it's an interesting lesson in language and all that stuff, because I think the process was right. Like get ahead of it, send an email so that customers don't feel like you've said nothing. Because I think to do no email, even when they probably didn't know exactly what had been released and they were digging under it and all that sort of stuff, I think Qantas customers would have been pissed with nothing.
Yeah.
And so then you go, okay, so what do we put in that? And how do we, and so I think, they were almost in a lose-lose to some extent because they didn't know at that point the extent of it, right?
It makes me wonder.
12 more hours? Do you wait? It's a really tough one, I think. I think they could have done a better job with the language in the email.
I
something
agree.
Like, we really don't know the extent of this yet, but we wanted you to be aware that this has happened and we are doing everything we can, from memory that the first email was a little bit more, hey, this has happened. Like you might have been affected. Like it's a little bit too, rosy as opposed to kind of maybe being a little bit more, because then to your point, maybe people wouldn't have that knee-jerk reaction because they would go, oh, wow, this is really serious. I'm probably affected. I'll wait and see what data it is. But
and this is the first time that Vanessa has run into a scenario like this, from what I understand, in her role, right? Like as the CEO.
Yeah, she's had a tough run regardless, because Qantas has been, the book came out, she's been CEO since the book came out, but this is the first, I would say, like big customer impact thing that she's had from memory. I would say so.
Yeah, because I'm just, how unfortunate too if that's truly the case where it's like her first kind of cyber issue or where
I
she
mean,
needs
she's
to
on
be
holiday,
responsible, and she's gone.
but also, don't you feel like we used to say this all the time, that one of us would go on holidays and something would happen. And as soon as I saw that she was on holiday, I was like, well, that was the problem. Like, you went on holidays. That's 100%. What happened.
I have a distinct memory, and you will know exactly what I'm about to say, but like there was a scenario where Dufficy and I were working on a crisis response to something, and Dufficy was in Italy climbing a mountain, and I had to call her, and
I know
one
exactly.
of us left. It was guaranteed when one of us left.
Guaranteed. If one of us tried to have a longer than like 3-day holiday, like an actual holiday, something would happen. It was, yeah. So I did laugh at that when that happened. I was like, oh, Vanessa, first rule is like, try and have a holiday. It's not going to happen.
Never tell the universe that you are offline, because then it will come back.
It'll come back. Yeah.
Yeah, no, but I think some of the bigger questions that I have around this too, and it's just with so with the issues that Qantas was already happening, and there's that erosion in trust.
Yeah.
You've got baggage issues, you've got canceled flights, you've got kind of all of these things where people are just expecting lower quality in general now.
Yeah.
But at what point, with the cybersecurity kick on, and then what else has to happen? Like, their number one value is trust at Qantas, or safety. Is it safety?
Safety. I think it's safety.
Safety. And so, like, at what point do you start to erode where people don't just say like, oh, it's Qantas, of course they canceled the flight? At what point do they start to feel unsafe on that airline?
Yeah, that's an interesting one, because and I think a little bit that started peaking out when they were cutting costs and kind of cutting. It's like, but they also still have a very strong safety record. I think most people still feel pretty safe with them. Mm-hmm. I think what's happened though is people were super loyal, right?
Yeah.
And would probably, and I think that loyalty has gone a little bit. So versus like, maybe that safety piece is still there, but I think people's like will shop around now and will be happy to shop around. Mm-hmm. I think the other thing that they missed a trick on is a lot of international airlines have sort of started to fill some of that gap, because obviously Qantas has the most routes out of Australia internationally. And so most people would probably have flown Qantas if they were going overseas. That's, but over the last couple of years, obviously Sydney and Melbourne are kind of becoming quite big hubs. People travel a lot. A lot of Australians travel for work. So a lot of international airlines have sort of upped the number of routes or the number of like flights that they do out of these hubs. And I think in the past, people probably would have gone with Qantas anyway.
Yeah.
And now I think people are much more open to like, oh, well, I'm going to go with, whoever, or just that loyalty piece. I think the other thing for Qantas is they've made, so part of being part of Qantas is like, getting the status and, being a frequent flyer. And, for those of us who traveled a lot for work, you would end up, getting, if you stayed with Qantas, you kind of got to a certain level. And I think for people, Qantas have made a fair few changes to their frequent flyer program, and there's there's more to come around points and different things. And so I think for a lot of people as well, they felt really dirty on that, because it was like, hang on, we're the loyal customers. We're the ones who are at a certain level because we've been flying you and choosing you over other airlines to get that.
Yeah.
And you're sort of stuffing us around again.
Yeah.
And I think that's the other thing that they missed a trick on, is like, those are your core like those people at that, and a lot of them are business people because they travel a lot, but there's a lot of everyday Australians who have worked their way up because that's the airline that they've flown their whole life.
Yeah. I also think the flight costs, because Australia is such a big country and most people are flying Qantas for that comfort and that like trust that they have in the airline. It's familiar. And so especially like you're putting your whole family on a plane, you want to go or somewhere that feels familiar and that you have that trust with. The prices that they have going up with like the Scotty and I just bought like round trip premium economy, and one of the things we noticed with premium economy international now is that you don't get lounge access when you buy
for a
premium
lot
economy
of
ticket
them.
anymore.
Yeah.
That's
I know.
bad.
Yeah.
Like you should.
Well,
You're spending 10 grand on a round trip
Yeah.
flight.
Yeah.
So, and you can't go into the lounge.
And you can't do a lounge. I know.
Yeah.
And I think this is like, I have a personal like Qantas status story that has meant I was pretty disappointed in them. And like, I'll tell it just as an example. It's not like a shit on Qantas, but just as an example. So when I was working, I had an APAC role, so I traveled a lot, and I would deliberately choose Qantas to try and maintain status. And when you're traveling for work, like that's helpful because then you're in a lounge with internet that you can work. Often they have a shower. So if you've worked all day and then you're flying home on the red eye, you can have a shower and, you know, it's like, so this is little things like that where you're like, okay, well, that makes my life a lot easier if I'm traveling for work. And then the twins came early. And it's on like, this bit's on me. The twins arrived early and obviously, you know, all of that happens. And so I forgot to put my status on. You can do a hold on your status. And I forgot. And then obviously I was in a newborn twin world. And so when I came back to work, and I'd lost my status because I think I'd passed, you know, you have that certain date, you have to have got enough status credits, whatever. So I emailed Qantas and contacted a bunch of people and said like, hey, I've been on mat leave. My twins came early. I forgot to do this, but I have a letter that says what dates I was on mat leave. I haven't been working. I'm now back at work. I don't want you to replace my status credits, but can you just put my status back to where it was and I'll earn it back?
Yeah.
You know, within 6 months.
Promise you, I'll spend the money.
I was like, and if I don't, then I lose it, right? But can you just honor the hold that I would have got if I'd remembered to put it on hold? No, didn't do it. And you know, like very hard to like speak to someone, very hard to like, and I just remember thinking like, you know, that would have been a really just good thing to do. And you could have just said you can have it for 3 months, you know, like, and look, I get it. They don't have to do it. They're a big corporation. But it was just one of those examples where I was like, I just don't feel that, you know, that ethos of the brand was still there.
But you know what? That's such a good example of kind of what I was thinking around as well, is like the customer service is waning. So they're less likely to like give you that nudge, even if you're a platinum status member or whatever, you know? Then they have the breach. Like what is the recipe for like people starting to realize that they're skimping in the wrong places? Like even if they're not, the perception of how that starts to look.
I think that's the challenge, is because I think these data breaches are going to happen. Like I think it's hard for a company, you know,
totally
not impossible, but I think, you know, these are big companies with a lot of customer data and all that sort of stuff. I think what's challenging for them, and you know, I used to talk about this a bit, and you've probably heard me say it before, but like around this idea of like a trust bank, right? And like you've got to earn this, like you start at zero, you earn it up, and you have this trust bank. Their trust bank is so low that something like this, even if they manage it fairly well, people are just like, oh, it's another thing at Qantas,
you know? This happens. Like
and so I think they kind of, in a way, although I don't think they've handled it terribly, to be honest. I think there's things they could have done a little bit better, but actually I don't think they've handled it terribly. I just think they are not in a position, trust-wise and brand-wise, that they can afford to keep having things happen. And this is just another thing for people.
Yeah.
And I think they have a big job to do to rebuild, and whether they even want to, because like part of their decisions they keep making, I just keep thinking, I don't see that you're making the investments to build back that,
and you can
brand trust.
You can do all of the marketing and the cool campaigns in the world, but like when it comes down to like rubber meets the road, like trying to honor somebody that's been a, you know, platinum member for 5 years and the money and acknowledging what goes into that, and then not honoring their like
and I'm sure there's 1,000 examples of that, right? That's just one example of where someone could go above and beyond for someone. And I don't know if they've got permission to do, like, I think this is the other, it's like, who knows, right? But I think there's just little things that they have, decisions that have made, micro and big ones, that have led them to this position. And so no matter how they handled this, I'm pretty sure there's still a reaction of like, oh, like they're just not got their shit together and they just don't care, you know?
Yeah.
Like, and I think that's what the problem that they're going to have moving forward is they have to figure out how they're going to, and maybe make some decisions about investing in some of these areas.
Yeah.
Because I just think people will start to shop around. I mean, and then to your point about pricing, like, I mean, you guys travel back a lot. I travel to the US. I now mostly fly United because it's usually more affordable.
Yeah, interesting.
And they have a lot of routes now going out of Sydney, particularly to like, you know, San Francisco or LA.
Have you been able to fly United Business? Is it
Yeah,
good?
it's good.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's really good. And
That's
I
good
feel
to
like,
know.
you know, and for me, like United is part of Star Alliance.
Yeah.
And so although it's not great for domestic, so like I still probably fly Qantas domestic most of the time.
In Australia.
Because there isn't like, you know, but as an example, I'm going to Asia in a couple of weeks and I'm flying a Japanese airline that's part of Star Alliance, and I'm Star Alliance Gold now because of United.
Yeah.
So like they are going to lose people, I think.
Yeah.
If they can't figure out how to get, you know, and it's yeah. So I think,
Well, especially because if you're not a business person, like traveling
No.
for work, you're just looking for the cheapest flight. Like, there's a reason why there's so many funny memes around people like 6 months ago, I wanted to save $50 and take this 6 a.m. flight out of Barcelona, you know?
Yeah.
And then it was like a terrible idea. People they want to travel, but they don't want to spend all the money.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So yeah, that's the Qantas. It'll be interesting to see. I haven't had any further communication beyond the like, here's all the stuff that got released.
That's what I was going to ask you is
That's
like,
my other piece. Yeah.
you're our eyes and ears on the ground. Like, what has the communications been like from the CEO since then? Like, outside of those emails, like, what has the response been from Vanessa?
Look, they have been fronting, you know, the media a bit. I think as a customer, I feel like I got that email about what got released, and then I've not had one more sort of mass comms. So I think that's also a bit of a miss, is like, well, what are you doing about it? Like,
Well, especially if you don't live in Australia, like, I wouldn't hear it. Like, it's not front
yeah,
page.
because you're not, that's true. You're not
outlets that
getting any of the media and the news.
And so that's something they need to think about as well, is like, what channels do we need to be on? Like, being in the AFR is not going to be enough. Like, what about your international customers?
Yeah,
that
I
are
haven't looked
looking
at
at different.
social much, so I don't know if they're being proactive in that front. But it's interesting you say that, because there was an article I read yesterday that was about how sort of one of the challenges for them as well is that they have a dispersed customer base, right?
Yeah.
And so your audience is in a whole bunch of different places, and some of them are overseas, some of, you know, so, and some of them are rural, some of them are, you know, like, so it's kind of, it was an interesting piece talking about like, how do you reach every audience? You know, yes, you have a mass email comms, but to your point about the media that they're engaging with, how they're communicating, like, I think thinking more globally. And I don't think they've really done that, but you know.
And I don't know, it's a fine line, because a piece of me thinks about the CEO going on video or like saying, listen, this is what's happened. We don't have a ton of information yet. Hang tight. And there'll be an email comms with more details related to each customer and how they've been impacted. To me, I just think that there's something in the evolution of, even with what we've talked about with New York and Mamdani running, like channel and the audience.
Well, they definitely went traditional. They definitely went traditional, I would think.
Yeah.
And look, I could be wrong. Like I've said many times, I do not have TikTok. So
I've not seen anything like other than when I was going down the rabbit hole.
They've gone like a bit different and done, you know, I don't think that, from what I can view, they've gone quite traditional.
Yeah.
You know, fronting the traditional media, mass comms to their customers, all that stuff. That's not wrong. I just think it would be interesting to see if they have, or what they've done from a new media perspective. Longer term, and this probably segues into like the second crisis thing I wanted to talk about. But longer term, it'll be interesting to see how they sort of continue to circle back and say what they've done about this.
Yeah.
And that's where maybe she could do more, like go on a few podcasts, do a bit more in-depth on like, as a CEO, what are we doing to kind of think about our security systems? You know, customer data has to be one of our number one priorities, if not the beyond the safety of people flying, like surely It's one of, so what are they doing? What are they investing in? All of that stuff. It'll be interesting to see how long they continue to talk about this, or whether they're just going to be like, okay, like it's all fixed, see you later.
It's such an opportunity to have a bit of like humility and share lessons learned as well, especially as like a new CEO. You can change the tone of the business that way too.
Yes, and I think Qantas showing some vulnerability and some humility would not be a bad thing for them. I think they've had such a long time at the top that they've forgotten how to do that.
Yeah, that's such a good point.
Is an opportunity for them to say like, hey, we're not getting everything right, and this is another example, and we need to think about how we're going to rebuild trust and just be a little bit more. But who knows? And that brings us to one of the big breaches of the past 12 months or so was the CrowdStrike breach. And obviously CrowdStrike has a very unique role to play in that it is around security. Yep. So then to have something happen to them, I think is, people were, and a lot of companies use CrowdStrike. What I wanted to touch on today is that I saw that their CEO, George Kurtz, did a LinkedIn post this week. It's just before the 1 year, I think, just before the 12-month anniversary of the breach.
Right.
And it was kind of like a follow-on on kind of how they've been thinking about things, what they've changed. It's a bit of a thank you to the team and the CrowdStrike people, his people, and the resilience of that business. And it's a really nice post, I think. And I think they did a good job in doing it on LinkedIn. We've talked about this a lot. We're seeing a lot more of this type of stuff. They obviously then posted it on their blog, and it's been picked up by media. But it's, I think, a really interesting comment on how long do you keep communicating about a crisis or
100%.
And they could easily not have done something, right? It's a year on. They've done a lot to fix their business. They could have not done something, but they've taken the moment to say, we need to communicate again. Yep. It's 1 year on, and they probably do need to communicate. I mean, their whole business is security. So they have had to do a massive rebuild, and I'm, their stock went down massively when it happened. Yep. Like, I think, but I want to kind of call it out as like, I think it's a good strategy, and it's a good reminder. And this goes back to the Vanessa CEO Qantas thing, is like, how long are they going to talk about it? Yeah. And I think there's a tendency with businesses to like, be like, it's done. Like, let's not talk about it again. Yeah. But it's a good reminder that actually it's not a bad thing to keep talking if you fix it.
Yeah, exactly. And from a comms perspective, like, I look at this blog post and I look at kind of the things that he covered, and you can tell that they meticulously went through and they were like, not only just from like the security part and they want to fix it, but like, where are we going to lean our values moving forward? Yep. Like, how do we communicate this internally? Like, I feel like through this messaging, it is so clear. You can tell that they've done a huge internal exercise that now they're like, okay, and this is how we're putting it forward. Like, I feel like they've spent that whole year beating themselves up so that their customers don't have to, almost like
100%. Yep. And like the humility that we talked about, but also he uses words about resilience for his people, the resilience of his people. And I think it's a really smart, because I think people forget that people work for these companies, right? And nobody wants this to happen. And it's the same with Qantas. Qantas doesn't want a data breach. The people working at Qantas are good people. They have, they're hardworking people. So I like that CrowdStrike is, yes, talking about their customers, which is really important, but it's also reiterating that like, this is a team that has rallied behind this problem. Yep. And that's smart. It's smart for internal comms, because people feel a sense of pride, like, yeah, we're a team, we're resilient, we've done this together. But it's also smart for customers, I think, because it shows we're not pointing fingers at our internal, like, we are like, yep, this happened, this is what we've done to fix it. I would love to see more brands do a little bit more of that, I think.
And not just shying away and having it be, the black mark on the company's like last year history or whatever.
No, I think you're right. I think they've really taken the approach of like the beat ourselves up and now also beef ourselves up. Yeah. Like, we've done a good job. We've been resilient. We've fixed the issues like this. And it's almost, it's like this sense of pride about that.
Yeah.
Really interesting. So I think in the beginning, they did a good job of owning it and fixing and saying what they're doing to fix it.
Yeah.
But they've also, I think with this circular 1 year on comms, done a good job of like rebuilding and this sense of pride in who they are as a company. And you're right. It's like you can see the values and the thought process in that post.
Yep. And just getting to own that narrative moving forward as well.
Yep.
Like you can see how that would be folded into an executive narrative.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think from a comms perspective, I agree. I think what CrowdStrike put out is just like,
good job, CrowdStrike. But I just think, this whole area, I think people also externally, and it's funny as a comms person when these things happen and you're a customer and you see that like, I know how complex it is internally to get to the point of sending a mass customer comms, and how many teams touch that element. And so I do have this sense of like, also, as we always say, like when you wake up to these things, you think, woof, hate to be the comms team today.
Totally.
And it's like, I had that when that happened. I was like, oh, that comms team's having a tough day.
I think about it every time. And then I also think about like the companies that would go through this, like the X's and the Teslas of the world that like don't have a comms team.
Yeah. Or just issues rich companies. I often think because it's quite an adrenaline rush when you're in these high, crisis / issue mode and you're operating at pace and there's a lot of people involved and all of that stuff. And I remember coming off the back of things like that and being like quite exhausted of like, oh, wow, that was like a truck hit us and now we've got to kind of rebuild as a comms team and think about what we're doing. And, often you have to rearrange a whole bunch of stuff because you're not necessarily, there's things, timing and all that sort of stuff. And so I think of these other companies that have these like all the time. And I'm like, how? And they either, some of them have got rid of their comms team, so maybe not so much a problem. But sometimes I just think, I just would hate to be in such an issues-rich environment. I think it would be exhausting. Some people love it. It's not really
Some people really do. I mean, some people, it's all they do. Like,
it's their whole,
it's all
jam.
they do. But I do think crises, like there is such an opportunity for lessons learned and embetterment of like a company. Like you really can, your team can be stronger, like you all rise together. Like there's so many opportunities for that. But I agree. I just feel like my cortisol levels would be so high all the time.
I know. Hey, speaking of like, this is completely tangent and we didn't talk about this, but I'm just going to give a little plug. There's a new Netflix like series called Trainwreck. And there's like all different, they're like documentaries and there's all different topics. But one of them, as a PR person, is really worth watching. It's the Carnival. I think it's Carnival. I hope I get the name, like the company right. But it's the Poop Cruise. Have you heard of this?
I watched it.
Yes. And the PR guy's on it. And I was like, bless you, son, for coming into this documentary. Like, I don't know if I would have fronted that. But it's a really interesting one in like their response and how much they like, and also that they didn't think that people would like, film things and like,
oh my God,
their families. So like what they were telling the media and then what was actually happening. Anyway, shout out to like, if you haven't seen it, Trainwreck Poop Cruise.
I was started to watch like the first 10 minutes of that and Scott was like, please don't. Like I was also like eating while I was watching it. And Scott was like,
do not eat.
How can you eat while
do not eat while watching it? That is,
you married me. I'm a disgusting human. You know how.
Yeah, no. It's as a comms person, it's fascinating.
Okay, I'll go and finish it.
They do kind of how it unfolds on the boat, but then they also have they have a journo who was one of the ones where they ended up following the story quite closely before it sort of blew up. But they also have, I don't know if he was an internal PR person or if he was the agency they have someone from the comms who worked, and he was like, it's very funny because obviously time has passed now and he's over it. But like, I could only imagine what that was like. And it's just, for me personally, I really don't want to go on a cruise, and it only just reinforced that for me.
I have no desire.
It was horrendous. Anyway, just Definitely talking about crises, definitely worth a watch.
Perfect.
Sure.
I will definitely give that a watch. And then anyone else that like watched that, like let us know.
Yeah. But there's a whole series. There's one on American Apparel as well.
Oh.
Yeah, it's called Trainwreck American Apparel, and it's about kind of the guy who founded that and like what a train wreck that was as well.
Did they talk about, I wonder if they talk, wasn't it the American Apparel where they found like the dead guy in the warehouse or something like that?
Oh, I don't know.
Maybe that was Sriracha. I can't remember.
Oh, might have been. American Apparel, they talk about like he was quite a wild CEO. And then as it unfolds, it's sort of like he's quite, I don't know, like a womanizer, and there's like really inappropriate behavior at work.
Oh, I need to watch this show. I feel like
they also kind of talk about the rise of the brand, which is really
Yeah.
quite interesting as well. And they came at a time, they did really like quite highly sexualized ads.
Yeah.
But they talked about how they recruited people. Like it's a really interesting case study in kind of this kind of rise of this brand, and then how it can all fall apart internally when you've got kind of a bit of a madman.
Yeah, interesting.
So that one's really good as well. And then there's another one about that guy. I think he was the mayor in Canada or something. Who got caught, like the photo of him with a crack pipe.
Oh, yeah. I started to watch that one.
Yeah.
I was actually like watching that through my fingers.
Yeah.
Like it's ridiculous. Okay.
But
I've
they're
seen
all
some of these.
As a comms person, they're all quite interesting to watch in terms of like even that one, like it was a person who went to a journalist and said, I've got this photo of this politician, and they wanted her to pay them for it, and that she worked for a network that was not going to pay. And then it kind of talks about how it all unfolds in the media, that story. And then American Apparel's similar in that it kind of has this external view of the brand and then what was going on internally. And it's got all these ex-staff members. Yeah, fascinating. Great series.
I'm interested.
Yeah.
I'll sit down and maybe have like the attention span to sit all the way through one. I'm terrible. I'm so bad at watching
Poop Cruise. You gotta watch.
Okay, perfect.
It's
right
so
up my
hard to
alley.
believe that it's like it's wild.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll prioritize the poop cruise then.
Yeah, definitely.
Anyway, that's going to be the name of our episode.
100%. I'm expecting you to do a social tile with some really creative imagery.
Oh, 100%. We're going to have a poop cruise highlight.
Plane, a boat, a poo emoji.
Oh, it's going to be the best. I can't
Happening.
wait. I'll be laughing every time I have to do the social tiles, and Scott will see me, like hear me. He'll be downstairs and he's like, "What are you laughing at?" And I'm like, "Just doing sip social tiles." I call Smart Public Sip.
Yeah, I love it. Well, I think we've really
smashed this out. We've nailed this. It's the only one that just gets to be us two for the next couple of months.
I know. Well, I think we've done it. Qantas, if you want to talk to me, give me a call. I'm sorry, but if you'd like to reinstate my status, you just let me know, and I'll be there.
This was actually just an episode to get Duffy.
100%.
Oh my God, I love it. Okay, if you have a topic or a suggestion or a guest, please reach out to us at hello@smartandpublicpod.com. You can follow us on TikTok or Instagram at smartandpublicpod, or just follow us on LinkedIn. We also have something there that's Smart and Public.
Yeah.
That's where we post all of our episodes as well. And we're on YouTube, so how about that? Anyways, you can find us at Smart and Public Pod anywhere. Just Google us, okay? And we'll chat to you next time when we have a fun guest on.
Bye.
Okay, bye.